What's up everybody, Matt Maran here for another car review. This is the 2022 Audi RS3. So about the brand new next generation version of the RS3. Well, it's just so amazing this car has continued on with its 5-cylinder turbocharged engine. That alone makes it super special, super collectible, and just such an epic car here, since we know that stuff like this is not going to be around much longer. And so as far as this new RS3, well, obviously it's built on the brand new S3 and A3, which has grown slightly, and then here for the RS version it's about a ½ inch lower than an S3, and it's a little bit wider. As you can see, these fenders that are punched out here on the sides and give you these really cool little vents here right behind the front wheels. And this thing just looks muscular from every angle. Out back there you can see too, it kind of bulges out there around the rear bumper and the exhaust and those oval tips. It just looks so cool. But first up front here, you have these very cool LED headlights that do these cool little animations, so it'll display the RS logo there, and these fun little touches where Audi kind of gives 110% with the way they have the creativity in their lighting sequences. This one also has the black optic package, so that's why you have the grille that's all blacked out, the blacked out badges, all that. And it really pops nicely here with the turbo blue paint color this one has. Coming down to the sides here, you'll see that you have these 19-inch wheels that are unique here, and they're wrapped in these Bridgestone Potenza tires on this one. Other vehicles I've seen have Pirellis. One other interesting thing is this vehicle has a staggered front setup. So it's 265 wide tires in the front, 245s in the rear. It's really interesting. I also really think these side skirts really come out a lot, and it's one of those side skirts that never lets you forget that it's there. Every time you step out of this vehicle, you'll be like, oh yep, there's the side skirt, because it just sticks out so much. It's like right where you end up placing your foot usually. It's funny, and just, you know, adds to the wider look here of this vehicle, which is just so cool. And then out back again, you have those new taillights. This one again being the black optic package. You have that little rear spoiler there that has you know, the black on it, so it nicely stands out as well. And again, those oval signature exhaust tips you get on RS models always, you know, really sets these apart as being truly special. Nice rear diffuser there as well. And so yeah, from every single angle, this thing just looks awesome, and you especially can't miss it here in this turbo blue color. All right, so let's start up and go for a drive. The RS3 has the unique RS key here, otherwise a standard Audi key, but that means it's a very nice small little key, some nice metal buttons here on it, but I love this thing. Is tiny, it's so nice, fits in your pocket great. And if so, of course, it is keyless access, keyless entry, push button start here in the RS3. So you just leave the key in your pocket, put your foot on the brake, hit the engine start button, and it roars to life. It's pretty subtle, even with this you know, active sound system you have here in the vehicle and the exhaust. It doesn't roar to life as much as I would like, but it still does sound pretty nice on startup. And if you're curious to hear about the interior in the RS3, my wife and I already did a full in-depth interior review on a regular S3, and the interior is basically the same. The seats say RS instead of S on the back, and I think that's basically the same thing on the steering wheel, but I think it's all essentially the same, but that means it's very nice. Now, is it, you know, this car is almost $65,000 as equipped. Is it 65 grand nice? No, but you know, you're paying for the performance of the RS, clearly. I think for the S3 though, it certainly fits with that price tag, and I still think it's very nice in typical Audi fashion. And so yeah, you can hear all our thoughts on this interior in that video, but overall, you know, I still think it's totally doable considering the performance you have. All right, so setting off here in the RS3. So the first thing you notice about this vehicle, well, it's nice and small. You know, the A3 and S3 are this nice compact little cars, and it's also really good as far as visibility goes. Nice thin A-pillars, you know, very easy to see out of, easy to park. I love the compact dimensions of this thing. It really makes it feel nice and just very tossable and fun. Other things to note here. So I'm noticing, so this has this 7-speed dual clutch automatic, but it's unique here for the RS3. So different than an S3 or any other, you know, Volkswagen or Audi thing. So it has unique ratios and unique tuning, and it's been beefed up as well. And what I've noticed is that every once in a while the transmission will randomly downshift without me asking for it. It'll also just randomly be a little bit rough sometimes on start, and just like whenever I'm accelerating from a stop, it'll, you know, have a defined grab point, which I'm not used to with Audis because they're usually so smooth with the DSG. And this, you know, makes its presence known. You will certainly know this is a dual clutch from the second you accelerate the very first time in this thing. But you know, it's all part of the raw nature here of the RS3, I think. And so as a result, you know, I don't think it's gonna, you know, feel bad or be something that any enthusiast is gonna mind. This one also has the regular steel brakes. You can get carbon ceramic brakes as a dynamic package option, which is like $5,500 extra and pushes one of these up over 70 grand. You know, all I can say, I haven't tested that out, but all I can say is it's a nice firm brake pedal here so far. far for these steel brakes. They feel very meaty, and they're of course larger than a regular S3, and so they feel really good. See, right there, randomly downshifted to second, even though I had enough power for third. It just seems like this transmission hunts around a little more than I'm used to in, you know, modern vehicles. But you know, truly nitpicking. You can always go into manual mode here with these nice large paddle shifters if you'd like, and change the gears yourself. But it's also, you know, pretty refined and comfortable. So of course you have adaptive dampers here. You know, I'm just in the auto mode here for the drive mode currently, so you know, pretty comfortable and stuff. But you know, on these 19-inch wheels with these paper thin sidewalls on these tires, I haven't really had too many complaints with the ride quality so far. It's still, you know, pretty nice, and here we are down in second again. But it just feels like it's ready to run. So that's what we're gonna do here. So I'm gonna put it up into the sport transmission setting here. I'm also gonna go into the RS mode. So there's a couple different, there's RS individual and then RS performance. That one cranks everything up the most. And I'm not gonna do launch control just yet. I'm just gonna do a normal rolling acceleration like I always do here from about, you know, 5 miles per hour or so, which supposedly is a little bit slower. But we're gonna turn down onto this back road here. Got a little bit of gravel, so it should be interesting. Let's see how it does. Here we go. There we go. Whoa, now there we go. Woo! All right. Wow, yeah, that's punchy there. It's just that dual clutch again, making me wait for a second before it actually gave me what I wanted. Oh, yes, sir. It sounds nice too. I'm definitely gonna get on it a lot more, but I just have to take it easy here for a second because it's quick, and so you got to get out of it pretty fast if you don't want to go to insane speeds. So as far as this motor, so it's a 2.5 liter 5-cylinder turbocharged engine, and it has 401 horsepower now, which is 7 more than before. 369 pound-feet of torque as well, so a nice bump of about 15 or so odd pound-feet of torque as well. And so 0 to 60 time with launch control is 3.3 seconds is what Car and Driver got, which is 0.1 second quicker than what you had on the past generation. So only 0.1 second. You know, for that extra power, you know, that sounds about right since it's not a massive leap in performance. But I mean, still a 3.3 seconds 0 to 60, that's supercar rivaling numbers from even just a few years ago and even currently still. And so, I mean, very, very impressive. It puts all that power through an all-wheel drive system, which is torque vectoring. It has a drift mode here, which I'm not going to be able to play around with too much, but it does have that, so it'll allow you to kick the back end out a little bit more as well. It just feels very, very nice and strong. Quarter mile time, by the way, is 11.8 seconds again with that launch control. But whenever you're doing a rolling acceleration, it certainly is slower. I think Car and Driver actually got like a 4.5 second 0 to 60 when you're going 5 to 60, so that certainly is going to make it feel slower. Oh, the way this thing takes off, it's impressive. And I'm just in the full auto mode as well, so we'll try out some manual shift as well. We'll do a lot more accelerations here in this vehicle to sample this power, but anyway, we're coming to some corners here, the same corners I always take, and let's see how this vehicle handles here. All right, so really turns in nicely. And man, it is holding on to second gear for dear life. Oh, okay, so I gave it a little bit of gas a little bit early, and that's the key to this thing. Wow, yeah, okay, so when you hit on the gas just a second or two before you should, that's... Wow, it actually did a drift. I wasn't even in drift mode. Wow, wow, wow. That was fun. Wow, it's really extreme with the way it really forces you to realize like this thing has a torque vector rear diff and it sends that power rearward. But by the way, it only sends 50% of the power rearward, and that's why you still have meatier tires up front than you do in the back. But I think it's honestly like ingenious engineering that you have skinnier tires in the back, because whenever you do want to do slides, it's a little bit easier than it would be with a square setup, because it sends that power to the rear and it overwhelms those rear tires a little bit easier. Holy crap, though, that was hilarious. That is, you really have to be on your toes with that. I mean, because it has, you know, stability control is off, by the way, in this RS performance mode. So that's why it let me get a little crazier there than usual. But you really got to be on your toes with that, because it really, I mean, it's all-wheel drive. It is safe. It's not going to, you know, oversteer you off the road, really, unless you're really being crazy. But, you know, it lets you play. I like that. I like that they engineered that in. I know that might not be the fastest way to go around a corner, but I mean, this thing is very dynamic, and if you don't want to have those shenanigans, you can still have a very fast lapping vehicle. This thing, by the way, did, I think, a 7-minute and 40.8 second lap around the Nürburgring. So I mean, very, very fast, very impressive, you know, as far as all those kind of lap times go. man, the way this thing pulls. Oh, I love it. And handling is super good, by the way. These are nice and light too. Only weighing 3,692 pounds, I believe. So it's roughly, I think, around just under 100 pounds heavier than the old car. But it's, yeah, it you know, it feels plenty light to me. For having 5 cylinders, a turbo, and all-wheel drive, and still being, you know, well under 4,000 pounds, to me is plenty impressive. I know this vehicle's small, but it's still totally livable, has a usable back seat and everything. To have, you know, this much performance and this much hardware, and still being, you know, under 3,750 even, is very, very impressive. So, oh man, this thing. You get yourself in a lot of trouble in this thing. You can go so much faster than you need to go. And it's just, it wants to rip your head off on those upper RPMs. And it's so unique with that sound too. It really is unlike any other engine as far as the sound goes. And it's just something that needs to be celebrated, because especially the sweet spot for me is like right over 3,000 RPMs. That sounds exactly like a Lamborghini Gallardo or an Audi R8. Take your pick. Whatever, you know, that V10. That's what it sounds like in those lower RPMs. Then once you get up higher, it has a different character and doesn't sound like those exotics anymore. But oh yeah, if you blindfolded me, you know, and you tried to like tell me which one is which, I mean, it'd be very, I mean, I could probably tell a difference, but it is very close. I mean, it's very, very impressive as far as all that stuff goes. But oh man, this thing is fun. But let's see if we can briefly do a launch control here. I think I have everything in the right setting. There it is, launch control activated. Whoa, yes sir. Wow, yeah, that's it. That's the 3.3 seconds there. Holy moly. Oh, I love it. Woo. Oh, we got a crackle out of that exhaust. A little bit of a pop. Oh man, this thing is so amazing. Oh, yes, I can get used to that. Oh man, it's almost, you know, it's an insane bargain. I'm just gonna say that right off the top here. You know, I'm gonna spend a whole week with this vehicle and I'll give you all my final thoughts, but I just have to say, I mean, a 3.3 seconds 0 to 60, all-wheel drive, you know, this sound, the exotic sound of this thing, the amazing handling. This one at 65, you can get one of these for 60 if you don't care about the technology and stuff. You know, 60, 65, okay, even if you want carbon ceramics, it's 70. You know, trying to think of other cars, or, you know, under 70 grand that give you this kind of performance and these kind of thrills. I mean, you know, like you have like a C8 Corvette, but that has a lower red line than this even has. You know, you have Supras and stuff like that, but even those struggle to do any kind of 0 to 60 time that matches this. This would beat those off the line, you know, because having the all-wheel drive and stuff. So it's like, you know, I mean, yeah, you know, you're paying a premium for the engine and stuff, but I really think that, you know, it's kind of unmatched in a lot of ways. The way it gets that back end squirrely though, I mean, you can almost convince someone this thing's rear-wheel drive with the way this thing handles, at least just from, you know, the seat of your pants. Obviously, when you're driving it and stuff, you will feel there's a little more understeer, especially if you're tracking it or you're, you know, pushing it a little bit more. But whenever you're just carving up a back road at sane speeds, I mean, it really loves to play around with you. It's very, very impressive. I'm gonna go ahead and try out some manual shifts here though. See if it'll let me go down into first. There we go. Man, it snaps off those shifts. And by the way, it will let you bounce off the rev limiter, so it doesn't do auto upshifts or anything like that, which is also very appreciated, because that can be annoying sometimes if you really want to stick to one gear and it's, you know, doing an auto upshift, you're going to go back down. You don't have to worry about any of that in this. I know in the S3 it gave me more crackles and pops in manual mode than it did in any of the other drive modes, so I'm going to try that out and see if we can get a little more sound out of this exhaust. The exhaust sounds good for sure, and this one does have the sport exhaust, by the way, which is $1,000 extra, but I could use a little more sound. I mean, it sounds very good though, and you do have, I don't even think there's really much coming from the speakers, if anything at all. I am really just hearing induction sound and exhaust sound. But I thought I'd have more crackles and pops, honestly. We'll see if we can provoke that a little bit more. Well, by the way, these tires are 10 millimeter wider than before on the old RS3, and the track, by the way, is about 2 inches wider than a regular S3. Man. And Yeah, 2 inches wider for the track. There's more negative camber now, both front and rear, than before as well. And by the way, they swapped a bunch of stuff too. It's not just like an S3 with an engine swap. It has different lower control arms in the front there, has different anti-sway bars, the spindles, and everything has been swapped around. So it has a bunch of unique things, but chucking it in here. Okay, I can see there is a little bit of like a front bias tendency, and then it, you know, it helps you out with the electronics to really suck this vehicle in. It's crazy how it pulls you through a corner. This is a special car. It's a special car. Oh man. It's impressive. It's very impressive. And so I'm trying to think, the only other thing that is, you know, around this price point that also is 4 doors that's very, very impressive is the Cadillac CT4V Blackwing. That also is available with a manual. You have a twin turbo V6 in that thing. It's the great rear-wheel drive Alpha platform as well, which I really love. I've lapped that thing a bunch. I've, you know, spent a day hooning it around. It is an amazing car. I think that car is fundamentally better, obviously being rear-wheel drive, and it's a better tool that's a little more pure feeling. It doesn't rely on the electronics to give you the insane, you know, performance and handling and stuff. But this car is more of a wow factor, because the Cadillac, you almost expect it to do what it's doing. This, everything's unexpected. It's better than you're expecting it to be. It's doing things that don't seem like they obey the laws of physics, and it does things that kind of, you know, warp your brain a little bit, and you're like, wait a minute, like, how is this happening? How is this doing this? It's counterintuitive, because putting your foot into the gas earlier out of a corner, usually in an all-wheel drive, you know, biased vehicle that's your front-wheel drive biased, it usually doesn't go well, and you just end up with understeer. So the fact that it, you know, completely obliterates that driving habit is kind of wild. But man, this thing is a rocket. It is an even in third gear, you know, just pulling from, you know, just over $3 grand. I mean, this thing just slingshots you forward, and it's impressive. Oh, I love it. And honestly, like, the 5-cylinder is great too. I think that just adds to the experience, and it gives you, you know, an amazing soundtrack to enjoy while you're having all this impressive performance. But honestly, I mean, it would be less special for sure if it was a 4-cylinder, but I mean, just with the handling stands on its own and impresses you, as well as the engine. And, you know, the horsepower is very impressive as well. And, you know, so I mean, the 5-cylinder to me is the cherry on top, but it's not the only unique thing about this vehicle that really sets it over the top. And also, by the way, I'm in that hardest mode, you know, the RS Performance mode. I'm going over these potholes and bumps and stuff, and it's fine. It's honestly fine. It's not even harsh. So, you know, if you're someone who wants to, you know, always be in the most aggressive mode, and you want to just, you know, completely obliterate your fuel economy and all that, I mean, you can actually do it and be fine. I have no complaints, and the roads around here in Pittsburgh are far from perfect. And it still is totally okay from a ride quality standpoint, in my opinion. For example, I think this is actually still a smoother ride than the Honda Civic Si. I know, totally different class of car, but Civic Si with just its normal sport-tuned dampers is a stiffer ride than this adaptive suspension in its stiffest setting on these tiny, barely any sidewall tires on this super aggressive setup. It's still totally comfortable. So it actually does a very good job as a luxury vehicle in just cruising around. That's also something, you know, I did have one chance to already do a little grocery run, that I drove this vehicle like a grandma because I wanted to preserve my first reaction in this vehicle. So I was driving slowly in the most boring mode, and it's a really nice cruiser whenever you're just trying to do that as well. So you know, it's just worth noting, this will be a really nice daily driver and a nice companion as well. I got some traffic, so I can't do too much of an acceleration here, but man, yeah, on-ramps will be your friend in this thing, that is for certain. I also love too that whenever you are driving around, this vehicle has a head-up display, and it'll give you your actual engine temp on the head-up display, which is great if you're track driving and stuff, but it also gives you a shift light, so you have a green, yellow, and then orange and red lights here coming on as you as you're you know, accelerating, and it's really great to have it right there in the head-up display, and it's nice and large and colorful, and really adds to the experience. It helps me out too with the focus of just like the mind-bending performance of this thing. It's just so savage too, the way it accelerates. It lifts up the nose, and it's really extreme with everything. But whew, all right, I gotta calm it down here. Let's go ahead and chill out here. We'll go back into the more mundane modes here, slow it down, back into the auto mode, and then look at that. nice and calm and relaxed. And it's just a nice highway cruiser here. You have adaptive cruise control. You can set here. It has lane keeping assist, all that type of stuff. And so now testing out that adaptive cruise control system here with the lane keep assist. It's okay. I'm kind of surprised that Audi's system isn't better. I tested it last year in the Q5, and I've tested it in several other Audis, RS7, all kinds of stuff. And it's one of these systems that's a little more reactive. It still likes to ping pong a little bit. It doesn't always, sit perfectly in the middle of the lane. I mean, it'll be nice, for longer trips and take some of the fatigue out of your drive, but it's certainly not one of the best systems out there. And they also, since it's, a pretty highly spec'd Audi, you're going to have all the normal safety tech as well. So you have blind spot monitoring, rear cross traffic alert, automatic emergency braking, as well as, the adaptive cruise and all that, the lane keep assist, every single thing you could want, really, this has. It even has an auto park feature. There's a little button there, and it'll parallel park you right into a spot automatically. So it has all that tech you want as well, but again, if you don't care about any of that stuff, it doesn't get in the way. It hasn't been nagging at me for, crossing over a lane a little bit or things like that, so obviously you can turn that stuff on and off and customize that, but, it's nice that you can have all that tech fade away in the background if you just still want a raw driving experience as well. So anyway, the only last little thing I will say is that I really wish you had cooled seats here. That's something that you should have in an Audi that's $65,000. For some reason, Audi refuses to do perforated quilted leather here in the S3 and the RS3. They do it in the higher models, but not in this for some reason, so you're still stuck. If you're working up a sweat like I am driving this thing spiritedly, your back's gonna get a little bit sweaty because these seats aren't even perforated, so it doesn't really breathe, unfortunately. So that's the one little complaint I can say. That's the only complaint I have so far. But thanks to Audi, I will have the RS3 for an entire week here, so I'm gonna drive around all over the place. Then I'll come back and give you guys my final real-world fuel economy, as well as my thoughts on the pricing, how it compares to its competition, and anything else I noticed here during my very fun week with the RS3. Alright, so I've been driving the RS3 for a week now, and I love this thing. Every single time I do that, I just fall in love all over again with this thing. It's just, it's so good. So as far as my observations here during my week with the RS3, well, it's just been a car that I love the two sides to it, I mean, if I'm just cruising to the grocery store and I'm just, waiting for the engine to warm up and I'm just cruising, it's just nice and comfortable. The sound system is fantastic, especially this one with the technology package. I love this Bang & Olufsen 3D stereo. It's one of my favorite upper tier stereos that is offered for many manufacturer. Just this Bang & Olufsen is always so good with a 3D surround sound, experience here. And again, I don't know how many people are going to be listening to the stereo in this, and it's very nice that it's an option, so you don't have to pay for that if you just want to listen to this engine all the time. But I still enjoy listening to music as well as having a good engine soundtrack combined with that, and so I just really love that. But I mean, the ride is still very impressive. I mean, it's still a little bit firmer than some super soft luxury car, but it's totally doable again, even in its stiffest mode. And so I mean, I'm just so impressed that it can be so comfortable and such a welcoming vehicle. I also gave a few buddies a ride in this, and I have a buddy who's over 6 feet tall, and he fit in the back of this thing no problem. He's a little bit of a larger guy, and he still had no problems whatsoever fitting in the back. So I mean, it's a car that, yeah, it's small, but it can really fit with your lifestyle maybe a little bit better than you might be expecting. It's a little more practical than you might be expecting. I would love for Audi to send us the hatchback version here to the States as well, but even still, I'm just thankful we have the sedan here. But it's just, this new RS3 being a little bit bigger than the old one means it's just, a little bit more practical and, just a really great car to live with. If I needed an all-wheel drive, awesome daily driver, and I could afford something that's $65,000 like this vehicle is, 100%, this would probably be what I would go with. But I'll get into the competitors here in a second, but first off, I briefly want to mention my fuel economy. I know most people buying these probably don't care about fuel economy, but for what it's worth, over my mileage here, I got 17.8 mpg. So these are rated at 20 mpg in the city, 29 on the highway, and 23 combined. So I'm only 2 mpg under that city rating, which is pretty typical for what I usually get, and I've been driving this thing a little bit harder than the average press vehicle as well. So honestly, I'm impressed with getting almost 18 mpg. Again, considering 400 horsepower, all-wheel drive, all the luxury, I don't think that's a big deal. And so, no problems whatsoever. And it does seem like online these tend to overperform the EPA ratings if you take it easy on the highway and all that. So if you wanted to hypermile this thing on a long road trip, you know, it would actually probably perform pretty well as far as fuel economy goes, considering again how high the performance is. I think they did a really good job in the efficiency. Lastly though, I have to mention the pricing here of the RS3. So it is pricey, and you know, there are some parts of this interior and stuff where, you know, it might be a little bit of a hard sell at this one's as tested price of about $64,000. These start at $60,000, and you can get them all the way up over $70,000 if you go for the Dynamics package with the carbon ceramic brakes. The main two competitors, there's really not many competitors right now, but you know, there's the CLA 45, which has less horsepower and is less special in my opinion, because even though that's a very impressive 4-cylinder, it doesn't have a 5-cylinder, and it doesn't have this unique sound. It sounds great though, the CLA 45s, but and it's a very high output for the amount of, you know, engine's displacement, but still, this 5-cylinder I think is definitely more special feeling. The only other interesting competitor in my opinion is the Cadillac CT4V Blackwing. So the CT4V Blackwing, you know, those are right around the same price as this. And what you get with those for the same price essentially is you get the option for a manual transmission, you get an actual rear-wheel drive platform. Obviously there's no all-wheel drive available for the Blackwings, so it's rear-wheel drive only. So, you know, if you need all-wheel drive, obviously this is going to be the way to go. But if you don't need that all-wheel drive and you want the option for a manual, I think the Blackwing is a really great alternative to this vehicle. It also has a bunch more power. It's got a twin-turbo V6 in that thing, you know, 480 odd horsepower in that car. So I mean, not like this is hurting for horsepower. And as far as 0 to 60 times goes, this actually might beat the CT4V Blackwing because of the extra traction and just the wizardry of these German dual clutches. They just are, you know, brilliant with the way they launch these things for those crazy 0 to 60s. But you know, it's just, you can have a lot more power. So from a rolling acceleration, those will feel a lot stronger. Yeah, the manual is great in those, and also the balance of that thing having a rear-wheel drive, you know, platform. It means it's not front-wheel drive biased like this is, you know, with the all-wheel drive system in this. You know, it's just a lot more playful with the Blackwings, and so it's a very different driving experience. You know, comparing a rear-wheel drive car to an all-wheel drive car is, you know, pretty tough. But it's just worth noting that, you know, that is another option out there for basically the same money. But yes, I am going to be so sad to give this car back. This one is one I'm going to remember for a long time. It's going to go down. I mean, this is the last we'll probably see of this engine most likely, and so it's just incredible. I'm so thankful I got to spend a week with this. Huge thanks to Audi for sending me this vehicle to live with for a week. It's been really unforgettable and just so much fun. And so anyway, I can't recommend these things enough. If you can afford one and it fits with what you're looking for, 100% go for it. You will not regret it. And I actually went to Cars and Coffee with this weekend and met 2 other people who just got their RS3s as well, and they're both loving them as well. So for whatever that's worth, just, you know, it seems like a lot of people really love these things. Everyone's excited about them, and you know, they're just incredible cars. Grab one if you can. So anyway, that's it as far as all of my thoughts here on the RS3. Let me know your thoughts on in the comments below. Thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care.